So looking ahead to the Cheltenham Festival, obviously everyone's looking at Constitution Hill. How's his prep work been?
So far, so good. I mean, he's pretty straightforward. I mean, he is in everything he does. I think that's the beauty about him. He worked on Saturday. He's got more work to do. Just got to be careful with the weather because the ground's drying up quite considerably at the moment, and there's no rain forecast. Now, the racecourses are going to struggle, but we're going to struggle too. Just, I like working them on grass, and our gallops are going to get pretty quick, I'd say.
And is he going to have an away day before Cheltenham?
I think he will. It's where, because of the weather. If anything, we'll go to Kempton because Barney's always kindly let us take a team there. We usually go the fortnight before. If necessary, that's where he'll go, yeah.
And look at the first day, they normally have the ground good to soft. Will that suit him?
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. I mean, he wouldn't want it quick. That's why we couldn't run him at Ascot earlier on in the year. He goes in heavy ground. Yeah. He's quite a heavy topped horse, so you'd have to be careful with him, yeah.
And is there any plans in for Punchestown or Aintree? Have you thought about where you might go after Cheltenham?
Yeah, I mean, if all went well at Cheltenham, which it's lucky this year is it's only every so many years we get a 4-week break between Cheltenham and Aintree. And then it's only 2 to Punchestown. So hopefully what happens is the Irish stay at home and wait for Punchestown, and if they've probably thrashed us all at Cheltenham, and we can go to Aintree quietly on our own and without them. Now, constitutionally, he'd have to move up to 2.5, which I'd be amazed if that was an issue. So yeah, if all did go well at Cheltenham, he would go on to Aintree if he's all right.
And then looking ahead to the Tuesday, Supreme, what are you likely to run in the Supreme this year?
I would have thought nothing. There has been mentions of Luccia switching from the mares to the Supreme, but I'm not sure that's right. I personally would prefer her to stay against her own sex. Listen, she's going to be a favourite for that, whereas she wouldn't be favourite for the Supreme, I wouldn't think. Well, she won't be. We'll just probably have a look at it, but I'd be very surprised if we don't run in the mares. I hope she'll run in the mares.
And talking about the mares race on the Tuesday, obviously we've got Epatante. Is that the target you're looking at now?
No, I mean, I was talking to JP yesterday. What is that? She's in the champion hurdle. She's been chasing Constitution Hill all season, but you know, there's a lot of prize money, but on the other hand, you want to win races as well. So it might be better for her to run in the mares over 2.5. I'm not sure she's a real stayer, but Honeysuckle comes into that now. Marie's Rock, who won it last year, luckily he's here as well. She'll come, well, she might come into it because we might move her up to 3 miles, which would open the doors a little bit for our other two. Theatre Glory, she could come in as well. So, you know, there's a lot of not moving around necessarily, but you can keep the doors open until the last minute anyway.
And Marie's Rock does look the strongest stayer out of the 3, would that be right?
Yes, I think that's why we'd probably think about going up to 3 miles. She certainly stays 2.5 really well around Cheltenham, and with Honeysuckle and maybe Epatante coming into the mares, you know, you might say, well, the stayers, is it a little bit more open? I think it probably is. She'd get a £7 allowance from the boys. You know, there's a couple of horses come out recently that have looked pretty good, but throughout the season it's looked a slightly weaker division. So we're thinking about it. We'll see. Tom Palin, who manages Midland Park, you know, that we've talked about it. We'll probably keep talking about it until 4 weeks' time.
Until a few days before, yeah.
Yeah.
And looking ahead to Shishkin, who comes back on Saturday. Obviously, how's he been, and has his schooling been good? Well,
the first thing that's important is to try and get to Ascot on Saturday. He's in good form. His schooling's been absolutely excellent. He's never been a brilliant workhorse, so it's quite hard to gauge him sometimes. But I'd like to go to Ascot, but we're going to need, I haven't spoken to him yet, but I hope he's putting plenty of water on it.
Is there a case where if he does not go to Ascot, he could just go straight to the Ryanair or straight to the Gold Cup?
I don't think he goes straight to the Gold Cup. I'm fairly sure about that. He could go. Yeah, I mean, if he can't run at Ascot, he'd have to go straight to the. He would go straight to the Ryanair. I'd have to take the gamble. I mean, maybe I've got it wrong and haven't put him in the champion chase, which he's already won. You'd say, well, that's. That sounds crazy, but I hope I don't have to supplement him for the champion chase, and I hope I'm going to find out that he does stay.
Yeah, obviously, if you haven't tested him over there, would be the route you maybe look to, the champion?
Well, you'd be taking a bit of a gamble there, wouldn't you? But I think it would be the one I would take, yes.
How is Buzz getting on? Will we likely see
Buzz is great, but I don't think so. I mean, he's not going to get a run in before it, and I think after the injury he had, which was not nice, it would be a very tough thing to ask him to run in a stayers hurdle first time out for over a year and a half.
And Jonbon was seen on Saturday. First time he's seen a horse on the track. Do you think that will probably help him now? He's actually had a race. He's seen a horse.
Well, he did have a race. You're absolutely right, and I think it. Look, it wasn't quite as what we expected, but we're taking positive views of the whole thing and saying, I think it might have done him good. I think it was a little bit of a wake-up call, and it won't have done him any harm.
Have you had a chance to speak to Aidan since the race?
Yeah,
and what was his thoughts?
Yeah, I think he was just sauntering along quietly, minding his own business, as he has done in all his previous chases. And all of a sudden, actually, they probably had slowed it down a little bit. And Harry Skelton suddenly sort of pounced on him like a buzzard and took him by surprise, to be honest with you. He just jumped straight past him and went 4 or 5 lengths clear. And actually, therefore, he had to go and get after him. The net result was the same at the end of the day. But I think he'd probably done himself a little bit too well, or probably you'd say the city trainer hadn't done enough work with him. When you've got horses that are very talented like him, it's quite easy. They find their work very easy, consequently aren't getting themselves probably as straight as they ought to be. But that was a prep race. I mean, that wasn't the Arkle.
Yeah, and obviously you look at El Fabiolo, who's probably his main danger in the Arkle over in Dublin. Obviously he raced against him last year at Aintree. Do you think there's much between them two?
Well, there wasn't that day at Aintree, no. There was absolutely nothing. It's promising to be a cracking good Arkle. There are plenty of others in there as well, but yeah, you'd say they look like the two principals at the moment, but there's plenty of others.
Have you got any horses that you would put in the bumper at all?
No, I'm not a mad keen about the Cheltenham bumper. That's tough on young horses. I mean, all those novices, your young horses, they've got to be good enough. If you're not good enough for these races, they go flat out. You're coming down that hill 1,000,000 miles an hour. A young horse that isn't ready for it, or probably not good enough for it. No, I don't like the race.
Okay, and let's look to the Pertemps. You're going to have Italian horses by the looks of it?
I'm going to play a Mullins and run, I hope, 5. Walkie on Air won yesterday. I was very pleased with him. We have the King's horse, Steeler March, which I'm looking forward to running. Captain Morgs, he's been doing very well. Call Me Lord, who's actually qualified 3 different times. And Scarpia, qualified the other day. And actually there's another one, there's Mill Green, who's going to run this weekend. The last qualifier is on Saturday. He was 3rd in it last year, but he hasn't run yet this year. He just came in very late. He's in good form, so he will actually, we haven't actually mentioned him all morning. I'm not saying he'll run, but he hasn't qualified yet. But he'll run on, he'll go to Haydock on Saturday. As long as he finishes in the first 4, then he'll join in too.
Who are you likely to run in the county hurdle?
I would think no ordinary Joe would come into it. He ran. I was a little bit disappointed with him in the Betfair hurdle last weekend, but he's a genuine 2-miler. First Street's a possibility. He runs in the Kingwell on Wincanton on Saturday. He'd have a good chance there. He's still in the champion hurdle, but I mean, he finished a very good second in the county hurdle to win his champion hurdle horse, so his form is actually rock solid.
Yeah, and obviously the champion hurdle is going to be a smaller race this year, with obviously because a lot of horses are going to the mares. So is it a good chance for some decent prize money for First Street?
Well, it is, absolutely. I think there's every chance he's running it, because he had 12 stone in the Betfair hurdle, so he's probably likely to have 12 stone in the county hurdle. Now, carrying 12 stone in the county hurdle with a whole lot of Irish horses rated £20 below him, which are probably only £5 above him, as in last year, then, it's an impossible task. So I think there's every chance he's running the champion hurdle.
And then just a couple of handicap horses that you're looking forward to seeing at the festival.
I could think handicap horses. Unfortunately, I don't think I've got any 2-milers for my father's memorial race. There'd be a couple for the Coral. We always have a few in there. There's a couple of for the 2.5-mile chase. I'd say Fantastic Lady and Balco Coastal will probably run in a novice. Bold Endeavour, I would think, would come into it, probably over 2.5. You wouldn't have a whole heap of them, I must admit, because I don't think they're well enough handicapped.
And then obviously Theatre Glory on Saturday, where we're likely to see her?
Well, if the ground was good, we'll supplement her for the mares. The mares 2.5, and I mean the novice hurdle, obviously Luccia, and a horse with no name. She was second in it last year, and I mean she still very much comes into play. Theatre Glory, if the ground was good, we would supplement her, yes.